In 1963, the European racing elite did not just doubt the Corvette, they mocked it. British magazines called it a straight-line beast. A French cartoon showed one sailing past a chicane, but inside Chevrolet, one engineer was secretly building a prototype that existed on no record. Only 5 were completed before General Motors killed the program. What those 5 did at Nassau is a story Europe would rather forget. British motoring magazines in the early 1960s wasted no ink hiding their contempt for Detroit's racing ambitions. Autosport's 1962 Riverside Grand Prix report described the Corvette as a lumbering beast of 3,150 pounds, more at home on a drag strip than on a twisty road course. The phrase stuck. Straight-line beast became shorthand for the American approach. Motorsport's May 12, 1963 issue opened with a cartoon Corvette, oversized and awkward, spilling its coffee as it tried to snake through a chicane, while an Aston Martin slipped by with effortless grace. The caption, "Chevrolet, great for the beach, not so much for the bends." French newspapers matched the mockery with their own blend of wit and skepticism. L'Équipe ran editorials that dismissed the Corvette as force brute, a blunt instrument in a sport that demanded delicacy. One François mechanic, quoted in June 1963, shrugged off the car's power, saying the engine is strong, but the body looks like a shoebox. Italian headlines called the Corvette La Bestia Americana, a brute left behind in the corners. Throughout the European press, the message was clear. American cars might thunder down the straights, but in their eyes, they were hopeless once the road began to twist. These weren't just passing jabs, they were repeated in editorials, cartoons, and even technical memos circulated among rival manufacturers. To the European establishment, the Corvette was a punchline. Powerful, unsophisticated, and utterly outclassed by the likes of Ferrari and Jaguar. The Grand Sport, still hidden inside Chevrolet's skunk works, had yet to offer its rebuttal. The reputation of the Corvette in the early 1960s in Europe was more than a running joke. It shaped the very rules of engagement on the world's toughest circuits. Race organizers and factory teams saw the American entry as a curiosity, not a contender. In the pages of Motorsport and L'Équipe, the stereotype hardened. Detroit's machines were built for the quarter mile, not for the carousel at the Nürburgring or the S's at Le Mans. Power, in this view, was a blunt instrument, impressive in a straight line, but irrelevant when the road twisted. European marquees flaunted their mastery of balance and precision. Ferrari's 250 GTO, Jaguar's E-Type, Lotus's featherweight chassis, all were held up as proof that true sports cars were measured by how they danced through corners, not how they thundered down the back straight. American manufacturers, meanwhile, seemed to play into the caricature. Magazine tests and advertisements boasted about displacement and horsepower figures, 327 cubic inches and 360 horsepower, while agility and braking were afterthoughts. The Corvette's own marketing leaned on acceleration numbers, reinforcing the image that it was designed for drag strips and highways, not for the cambered switchbacks of Spa or Monza. Even within the United States, the racing scene prioritized quarter-mile times and oval track speeds, further cementing the division between American muscle and European finesse. This cultural divide wasn't just about engineering, it was about identity. To European teams, the Corvette's presence in GT racing felt almost like a provocation, a brash outsider challenging the old order with brute force. The idea of an American car outhandling a Ferrari or an Aston Martin bordered on absurd. Yet beneath the mockery, a challenge was taking shape. For Chevrolet's engineers, the only way to answer was to build something the Europeans couldn't dismiss, a machine that would force the skeptics to reconsider what American performance could mean on a world stage. Inside Chevrolet's engineering shops, Zora Arkus-Duntov set out to overturn every assumption about American sports cars. The Grand Sport would not be a heavier, overpowered version of the street Corvette. It began with a chassis unlike anything Detroit had produced, a hand-welded aluminum space frame weighing just 93 pounds. Duntov's engineers pored over aircraft-grade alloys, chasing a weight figure that seemed impossible for a car of this size. The finished frame, recorded in General Motors engineering notes, undercut even the most ambitious European GT cars. The body was molded from fiberglass, each panel hand-fitted and shaped for minimum drag. Wind tunnel tests confirmed a slippery profile, with a coefficient of drag measured at 0.32. The entire car, ready to race, tipped the scales at about 1,800 pounds, nearly half the mass of a standard production Corvette. For the engine, Duntov specified a 377 cubic inch small block V8 tuned to produce close to 500 horsepower. Factory dyno sheets logged output figures that rivaled the best from Maranello and Coventry, but with a raw edge that was distinctly American. On paper, the Grand Sport's power-to-weight ratio eclipsed anything Ferrari or Jaguar could field. The numbers told a story of intent: 93 pounds for the chassis, 1,800 pounds curb weight, 500 horsepower on tap. Duntov's design was not a reaction, it was a direct challenge. Every detail, from the magnesium wheels to the quick-change rear end, reflected a single purpose: to silence the jokes and prove that an American car could not only run with Europe's best, but beat them at their own game on the world's most demanding tracks. The Grand Sport's secret life inside Chevrolet came to a sudden stop in March 1963. Word of the project had trickled upward, crossing the desks of GM's legal department and eventually reaching the boardroom. The trigger was the company's long-standing commitment to the Automobile Manufacturers Association ban, a policy that forbade factory-backed racing after the catastrophic 1955 Le Mans disaster. GM's top brass, led by Chairman Frederick Donner, saw the Grand Sport as a direct violation of this agreement. Within days, a termination memo landed on Zora Arkus-Duntov's desk. The language was blunt. All activity related to the Grand Sport was to cease immediately. No more chassis, no more engines, no more talk of Le Mans. The order cut deeper than a simple cancellation. Duntov's plan to build 125 cars for FIA homologation was dead on arrival. The 5 completed prototypes, each a hand-built weapon meant for the world's toughest circuits, were suddenly corporate contraband. Internal receipts document the abrupt transfer of these cars out of Chevrolet's control. Instead of the factory team storming Europe, the Grand Sports were quietly reassigned to private hands. Invoices and delivery slips show the cars moving to independent outfits, stripped of any official support and forbidden from carrying the Chevrolet name in competition. For the engineers who had spent months chasing the impossible, a 93-pound chassis, a 1,800-pound curb weight, and 500 horsepower on tap, the clampdown was a bitter reversal. The Grand Sport had gone from secret weapon to corporate orphan overnight. Yet the ban did not erase the car's potential. If anything, it raised the stakes. With the factory silenced, the only way the Grand Sport could answer its critics was through the hands of privateers willing to risk everything on the track. The next chapter would not be written inside GM, but at the edge of the racing world, where rules bent and legends were made. Roger Penske and Jim Hall received their Grand Sport chassis just days before Nassau Speed Week. The cars arrived as unfinished prototypes, shipped in crates with spare parts, and handwritten instructions from Zora Arkus-Duntov's team. There was no factory transporter, no Chevrolet pit crew, just a handful of private mechanics working out of rented garages. The Mecom racing team handled the logistics, ferrying the cars from the docks to the circuit, piecing together engines and suspensions late into the night. On the entry list, the Grand Sports appeared as private entries, stripped of any Chevrolet branding. Penske and Hall faced a field packed with works-backed Ferraris and Shelby Cobras, each surrounded by teams of engineers and factory resources. Against this backdrop, the Grand Sports rolled onto the starting grid as underdogs, unproven, unsponsored, and carrying the full weight of American racing pride on their lightweight frames. Numbers from Nassau ended the debate. The Grand Sport clocked 173 miles per hour on the long back straight, faster than any Ferrari or Cobra in the field. Timing sheets from the Governor's Trophy showed a staggering advantage of 10 seconds per lap over the fastest Shelby entries. Roger Penske and Jim Hall didn't just win, they swept the class, taking first, second, and third, with the rest of the field trailing far behind. Leo Levine, reporting for Competition Press, wrote that the Grand Sports won so easily it caused embarrassment among factory personnel. The data left no room for excuses. American engineering, once dismissed as crude and unsophisticated, had delivered a machine that outpaced Europe's best on their own terms. For the first time, the punchline belonged to someone else. Today, the Grand Sport's legacy endures, not as a production car, but as a purpose-built prototype that shattered European prejudice in its brief flash of freedom. In an era where innovation still battles bureaucracy, its triumph reminds us, sometimes the underdog only needs one chance to rewrite the rules.